Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of the story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, December 3rd, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that, we are a news podcast. We do try to watch your language, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too graphic for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we get into this, folks? Well, there's only one way to get into this. Basically, we got to start off with an idiot that just, well, let's be honest, he is an idiot. But the story itself just, well, you'll see momentarily.
This morning, the rapper Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, the center of a firestorm again, now banned from Twitter after more anti-Semitic comments and posts. West's account suspended Thursday night after he posted a now-deleted image of a swastika inside a Star of David. Twitter owner Elon Musk confirming West's suspension while replying to another Twitter user, writing, "I tried my best. Despite that, he again violated our rule against incitement to violence. Account will be suspended." West's Twitter account has been restricted before over anti-Semitic comments, but he returned to the platform in November. Musk has said that the account was restored by Twitter before he took ownership. Earlier yesterday, during a lengthy interview with conspiracy theorist Alex Jones on his InfoWars show, dressed in a full mask, West attacked Jewish people, spread more anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and praised Nazis, also saying this.
I see good things about Hitler also.
When Jones says he didn't like Nazis, West interjected.
I like Hitler.
Jewish leaders have warned of heightened fears of anti-Semitic hate recently. West has been one of the most famous voices sharing anti-Semitic comments over the past few months, causing him to lose millions of dollars in lucrative partnerships. Now appearing on the InfoWars program with white nationalist Nick Fuentes. Both dined with former President Donald Trump just before Thanksgiving at his Mar-a-Lago club. Trump, who is also running for office in 2024, said he did not know who Fuentes was and that West expressed no anti-Semitism at the dinner.
And that is not all. The new ban comes hours after it was announced West would no longer be buying the alternative social media platform Parler. The company says the termination of the deal was mutual. Guys, back to you.
All right. So there's really no other way I could say this except for a guy that choose to shoot himself in the foot and reload. You would think by now he will learn to shut up. But again, this is the person that's tried to Trump, who decided to also go on Alex Jones' InfoWars show, which I'm not going to lie, I'm surprised that show is still on, considering that Alex Jones has already filed for bankruptcy because he called Sandy Hook a fake massacre by fake actors, and of course he paid for it in the courts. But why am I not surprised by Kanye West? You would think of all people by now he would learn to shut up, but apparently he has not. And at the same time, guys, it is amazing to me that he would go on and say stuff, and the level, I used to say this all the time, I never understood how people defended Trump until I saw how many black people defended Kanye. And they still defend Kanye. But that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother time. But again, it makes no sense that you would think for a person that has lost almost millions, if not billions of dollars in endorsement deals, things of that nature, you think by now he would learn to shut up. You would think. Moving right along, guys, we did want to cover this story. Of course, the Supreme Court has taken on, we'll listen to arguments regarding President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. As you guys do remember, there are now 6 lawsuits from 6 different states that are going after the president, saying that, no, sir, you do not have the ability to forgive student loan debt. And of course, a judge in Texas had said that it was unconstitutional since it does not say in the Constitution that the president does have the power to do that. So the fact of the matter is that arguments will be held. I just wonder what those arguments are going to be. For a lot of people that believe that student loan debt shouldn't happen because they're under this facade, that everybody should be able to pay their own way. You shouldn't take a loan out if you can't afford it. And, goes on the whole BS list they usually go by. But as I've said before many times on this podcast, that unfortunately not everybody's situation is the same. Whether or not you've had a great job, whether or not you may have had parents' money, inheritances, assets that you can leverage to pay off your debts. Or, the fact that these days companies would love for somebody to basically have no personal life and work their tails off until they die and still get no farther on student loans because the game is set up to keep you continuously in debt. Don't believe me? Look at the interest rates on these loans that they give to kids. I know for most kids that go into college are not kids, they're 18-year-olds or adults. But let's think about it. When you're giving something that can affect the rest of your life at 18 years old, and you think that because you're on the impermanence of college, that you will find a great job and that you'll be able to pay this off in a couple of years, yeah, that's the lie. But what's amazing about this is no one is looking at these universities and colleges and wondering why is tuition going up every year, but yet the education is staying the same. No one's looking at these banks that are giving out student loans and going, this is predatory lending at its finest, and yet there's no regulations in place to prevent future debt. To prevent this type of situation from happening again to future students. That's why I keep saying the entire time we are kind of the fact of the matter is that Biden is trying to keep his promise. He didn't say he was going to cancel all student debt. He just said he was okay with 10 to 20,000 because he's a moderate Democrat. Moderate Democrats are about as Republican as it gets, but just enough to be considered on the other side, because moderate Democrats don't believe in eliminating our student loan debt. They will put us in every war that they can find, but they will not eliminate our student loan debt, even though the debt itself, the two wars that we fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, would shadow the amount of student loan debt that we currently have right now. But again, it is good the Supreme Court is taking on this case. I kind of have some mixed reviews as far as, them being conservative leaning, because again, they shot down Roe versus Wade. And now the fact that they're taking on something that can affect millions of Americans, let's just say my hopes are not very up. My hopes are not on the high side that this is going to pull through for us. Just saying. But other things that President Biden has done, which may upset some people. You guys may have heard from our midweek review that the union and railway yards may be going on strike again, possibly as soon as this Friday. Because of that, President Biden has decided, along with Congress, that we're going to sign a bill that's going to force the workers to accept the plan that they actually helped get designed when this issue occurred a few months ago. Yeah, not a good move.
Signing a bill to avert a rail strike. The measure passed with bipartisan support and imposes a deal that some unions rejected. ABC's Jay O'Brien joins me live now for more on that. Jay, what exactly does this bill do?
So this was a bill that the White House tapped Congress to step in on. So earlier this week, as you recall, the House passes this legislation in addition to another piece of legislation that gives an extra 7 days of sick leave to the rail workers. Then it goes to the Senate. The Senate rejects those extra 7 days of paid sick leaves, but votes up on the bill 80 to 15. What it does is it essentially agrees to the earlier deal that was struck by the White House, or that was brokered rather by the White House between the rail companies and the rail workers. And it approves that agreement without the rail workers say so. So it compels those rail workers back onto the job without them agreeing to that deal that was brokered by the White House.
Now, Jay, the Senate failed to pass this sort of secondary part, this other legislation that would have guaranteed the workers paid sick days, which was the holdup on this deal, at least the central one. President Biden, though, says he still thinks that could happen. How?
Yeah, the question is, what is his plan going forward? He said early on that he regretted not being able to get those 7 days of paid sick leave in that initial deal that was brokered by the administration. But he went on to say, as it relates to paid sick leave, the fight isn't over. What he's planning to do going forward, though, is an open question, whether that's a legislative priority of his or some other avenue. If it is a legislative priority of his, though, there are some impediments to that. You have to get 60 votes to pass anything in the Senate. And because of Democrats' slim majority there, it has to be bipartisan legislation. And also, of course, come January, there will be a Republican-controlled House, Diane.
And Jay, there are so many different deadlines ticking, it feels right now. This is one thing out of the way. So what happens with this pending government shutdown? How are negotiations?
So we're going to stop it right there, just because it goes into government shutdown, which again with the debt ceiling, because they keep kicking the can down the road. That never changes. They'll always keep kicking the can down the road. But what I wanted to point out was the fact that Biden had signed a bill that pretty much says we're going to accept it regardless of the unions. So they really, above all else, circumvented the union workers. And that's why I said for really a Democratic group, that sounds very conservative, especially when the thing about the fact of the matter is it's over paid sick days. Paid sick days. Forget the fact that everything was cool, but down to paid sick days, because let's be honest, working in America, you don't get a lot of paid sick days. We're not like we're not like other countries that have paid sick leave. We don't. Not to a point. You know what they try to sit there and tell you guys? And I say this all the time. You know what they try to sit there and say? You have PTO. You have personal time off. But let's be honest. Personal time off, the way it is accrued is terrible in this country. And at the same time, even if you do get a lot of it, you have to be very strategic on when you can use it. But if you have family and you have kids and things that come up that nature, and kids get sick, wife or husband gets sick, you have a family emergency, water heater breaks in the house, something happens to where you got to be off work. But in this day and age where everything goes up for your paycheck, you can't miss work. Missing a day of work means a bill you can't pay, a utility you won't be able to meet. Either way, you just cannot afford it. So what's the alternative? The alternative is paid sick days. But it amazes me in an area where a lot of commerce and shipping logistical stuff get done, that you think they would give these workers everything they're asking for, because let's be honest, without them, the entire U.S. economy will take a hit. But even more so, that the Democrats do a very conservative move and say, well, we're going to sign a bill, have this passed, that pretty much says we're accepting this deal, and you circumvent the unions. Even more so, where I'm just like, it's a simple thing. The owners, the CEOs of these companies can easily give what these workers are asking for, but yet choose not to. Even more so when it was pushed on Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. Look at his answer when Jake Tapper brought this up.
Mean to press the case if you're not willing to actually go to these billionaires and say, how on earth can you sleep at night not letting your railway workers have paid sick leave, which is just like that. I mean, that's not an extravagant benefit, paid sick leave. You get sick, you get to take a few days off. They don't have that. So I guess these lofty aspirations are one thing, but I didn't hear any language coming from the administration saying these rail companies need to get serious about offering basic benefits like paid sick leave. I didn't hear that. So I understand where Gabe Christensen is coming from.
Well, again, what this administration supported was what the union leaders and the company leaders agreed to, and did not insert changes into the agreement, because that would have likely added time and complication to a process that would have taken us off the cliff economically. But let me be clear, very specific legislative proposals have come from this administration advancing paid leave. And if friends on the other side of the aisle would work with us, we could have had that, and we could have that in the future. And that's going to continue to be something we work on. In the meantime, what we have now is millions of Americans who can breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that everything from baby formula to milk to petroleum products that affect the price of gasoline to treatment materials for water to all of the other things we count on will continue moving. And the workers, the essential workers who get them where they need to go, not only have an additional day of paid personal leave per the agreement that was reached, but also a 24% pay increase.
Yeah, obviously not every.
Et tu, Pete Buttigieg, et tu, I'm sorry. I expect this from conservatives. I don't expect this from Democrats. I mean, people to just ask flat out, how is it that you guys are not seeing the problem? That the whole idea, we are just basically going with the deal that the union workers went over initially, and that we're just forcing them to accept it. And we're not going to forget. We're not going to forget about paid sick leave, guys. You know why? There are many legislative bills out there that only if our friends across the pond will help us on. Sir, this is why I know if I ever got on a show like CNN, a network like CNN, and I'm interviewing people like that, my face would betray me, because I'm just sitting there like, I would just facepalm like, dude, that's not the answer you want to give. And if that is the answer you want to give, I'm concerned, heavily concerned, because first off, the measures that you talk about, first off, you couldn't even get them passed. And these are measures that you couldn't get passed in the Senate. Let's not forget, if we're going down memory lane, you couldn't even get minimum wage passed. You couldn't even get the Voting Rights Act passed. You couldn't get the James Lewis Act passed. You couldn't get the George Floyd Police Reform Bill passed. You couldn't get Build Back America version 1 passed in a Democratic simple majority. And I say simple because you had the House, you had the Senate by via tiebreaker, but because of 2 senators who decided that, no, we're going to say no to everything and derail everything, well, let's be honest. The whole thing about you pushing sick leave through, paid sick leave, yeah, let's just say I'm not very confident about that. And even more so, you and President Biden, the rest of Democrats have sat there and have actually told these union people that, you know what, accept the deal. Because we're going to fight for it, but not right now, because they go off the greater good theory. They go off the greater good. For those that don't know, it's pretty much saying for the sake of many, we're going to deny the few. And I think it is a terrible, dangerous move to turn around and tell people that, hey, we're going to accept this deal regardless of what you think, because those union workers can still strike. Now, would I be remiss in there saying that because the midterms have passed, the Democrats who were elected feel very safe and secure about their jobs? Yes. That's what all politics, Democrat or Republican. Because let's be honest, the only time you ever have a politician's ear, really have their ear, is election year. It's the only time you ever have their ears. Aside from that, it's the next 2 years of two-stepping and BSing while they still get paid, while they still get their leave, while they still get their medical benefits, while they still get paid and get protection and get all these things on the taxpayers' money, which, again, I keep pointing out, unions do work. And I feel like those railroad workers are going to go on strike. And rightly they should. Because for a thing such as paid sick leave, that is the only thing holding this up. And that is amazing to me, that on paid sick leave is where everything hinges on. And that business owners can't give paid sick leave to their workers. It mystifies me that that's what you hang off on. I mean, forget the fact that I kept saying the entire time, like I said, everything in this country now is going up on your paycheck. And jobs, as much as they say they hire, are being very scarce because a lot of people prefer to work from home. A lot of companies are trying to still justify why they have office buildings. But you think, for the simple fact of the matter, for something as easily as paid sick leave should be given to these same workers who affect our economy and shipping across the U.S. When you're in that position where you can affect so many, one would think that you will be the priority taken care of. But that's just me. But I also want to repeat this little bit of history, a little bit of news that we did talk about over the midweek review, because it is historical. It definitely doesn't need to be repeated. It is a first that a black man will lead a Democratic caucus in the new year. And his name is Hakeem Jeffries.
Elected Representative Hakeem Jeffries to succeed Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House.
I also want to convey my thanks to Speaker Nancy Pelosi. an extraordinary speaker for the ages.
Jeffries from New York will be the first Black leader of a party in Congress. Elections took place behind closed doors where members voted by secret ballot. Democrats elected Katherine Clark of Massachusetts as whip.
We as a team and as a caucus reflect the diversity and the strength of the American people.
Number 3 has been given to Pete Aguilar of California, who served on the January 6th committee. Aguilar is now the highest ranking Latino in Congress.
What we're fighting against is this MAGA extremism. And we heard loud and clear this election from the American public that they want us to work to get things done for them.
Jeffries, Clark, and Aguilar all ran unopposed. The shift comes after Pelosi announced she would be stepping down as Speaker after 20 years. Pelosi said she wanted to pave the way for a new generation of oversight in the Democratic Party. Jeffries, 52, alongside Clark, 59, and Aguilar, 43, mark a generational shift in Congress's positions of power.
So yes, it is historical that and a Black man will be leading Democratic caucus, becoming the House Minority Speaker for the new Congress starting. For the new Congress starting next January. However, I hope, and I don't mean to be, and don't get me wrong, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer in the situation. I do not, but I only hope that he is progressive. Don't get me wrong about Nancy Pelosi. She's as moderate as they come. She's had some wins. She's had some losses. She's had some questionable decisions that not everybody agreed with, present company included. But at this time, there needs to be a change because as conservatives get more and more extreme to the right, I have said this already. If Democrats are going to survive, they have to be progressive. Aggressive measures will need to be pushed forward. No more moderates holding the line. Democrats have to move progressively forward. Now, will Jeffries be that? We'll find out. I'm just saying that this is what's going to happen. We don't need a lot of the same old things, if that makes sense. Just because the fact of the matter is that nothing gets done. I mean, Democrats have always had multiple opportunities, but it always seems that there's always one or two. And I've always pointed out the moderates because it's always used to be the moderate. It's always the moderate Democrats, the centrist Democrats that always seem to be the roadblocks because they act more conservative than progressive. But it is very clear now that we could not depend on the GOP to actually do what needs to be done, concerning the fact that they've already sat there and said once they do take office next year, they're going to launch a lot of investigations that have next to do with nothing. They're talking about looking at Hunter Biden, looking into the DOJ and how they're handling Trump, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Literally, they're going to waste taxpayer time and money into looking at investigations that will literally turn up nothing, lead to nowhere. At the same time, don't introduce any bills that help the American people, just simply billionaires, enterprises, and corporations. Same thing every time the Republicans get in office. But we will hope that Hakeem Jeffries is progressive. If so, maybe Chuck Schumer will get the message. Maybe they'll push a lot of things going forward. It'll be different with the GOP-controlled House and a Democrat-controlled Senate, and Biden and Kamala Harris with the last 2 years of his first term. Just saying. But they're not the only House that's but the Democrats aren't the only party out there that has some questionable things going on. For the first time in actually a couple of years, there seems to be an issue with the GOP-controlled House that'll go into effect next year because Kevin McCarthy thought he could just slide on in and be the House Majority Speaker. Yeah, he thought that.
I should say Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is warning House Republicans, get in line and support his bid for a speaker or expect disaster. Watch.
Having a challenge on the floor is never going to be positive, and really you turn the floor over to the Democrats when you do that.
This is very fragile that we're the only stopgap for this Biden administration. And if we don't do this right, the Democrats can take the majority. If we play games on the floor, the Democrats can end up picking who the speaker is. We need to do this for the American people. We either are successful together or we will fail individually, and we will not be given the possibility or the opportunity to be in the majority again.
So at least 5 House Republicans say, as of now, they won't support McCarthy's leadership bid. So now what? What is next? So joining us now, CNN political analyst Jonathan Martin, senior political columnist at Politico. Good morning. So glad you could be here. It's good to see you in person. So let's talk. But this is about raw numbers, okay?
Yeah.
So McCarthy needs 218 votes. If every other lawmaker besides those 5 vote on party lines, he's 2 votes short. So is he really in danger here?
He's in real danger. Now, the good news for McCarthy is that today is December 1st, not January 1st. So he's got a little bit of time to work those members. Look, when you're the leader of a party in Congress, you have a lot of tools at your disposal, right? You can offer carrots and sticks. And for the next month, McCarthy's going to be doing a lot of that, trying to reel in just enough people with sort of various carrots, perhaps a couple sticks.
2 quick questions that are kind of combined.
Yeah.
If not McCarthy, who?
Yeah.
And how is this different from Paul Ryan in 2015?
Well, the obvious backup would be Steve Scalise, who's the number 2 from Louisiana, Don's home state, who is somebody who's seen as sort of a mainstream conservative and isn't as despised, I guess, by the far right as McCarthy is in the House. And in terms of the Ryan question, this is part of the challenge the House GOP has. There's no sort of Paul Ryan waiting in the wings here who can step forward and be a sort of broadly popular and sort of a super impressive pick. It's no offense against Steve Scalise. He's perfectly capable, but he just doesn't have the sort of background that Paul Ryan had. Ryan had been on a national ticket in 2012, obviously, before he became Speaker of the House.
Well, I've been struck by the Republicans who have come out in support of Kevin McCarthy at this very difficult time. He's saying basically, if we don't stay united, Democrats are going to end up picking who's our House Speaker because the margin is so dang slim.
Yeah, look, this doesn't happen in Congress, but it has happened in states over the years where you have a very tight legislature and there's some kind of a bipartisan deal to elect a compromise candidate. I think in a very polarized Washington, that's still pretty darn unlikely that you would see that kind of a pick emerge from the political center, if you will. I think it's more likely, Caitlin, that we'll see a Steve Scalise, a sort of conservative backup plan.
Yeah, it's weird. For the first time, and I'm usually a guy that sits there and says, if there's one thing conservatives are good for, it's towing the party line. And to think that Kevin McCarthy may not be House Majority Speaker because he does not at this point have enough votes to be confirmed, that it's different. I mean, it is different. Maybe the fact that the Trumps, the QAnons, and just crazy batshit people are finally getting to the right, that the GOP may not be exactly as unified as we think it is. But I just find it interesting that Kevin McCarthy kind of pulls a Trump card, sit there and says, either confirm me as House Speaker or we're going to have issues. Sounds very Trumpish if you think about it. Elect me or you'll be sorry. Well, I'm sorry, Kevin McCarthy. I don't think at this point, for somebody who was a spineless, who didn't like Trump, but kissed Trump's ass and all of a sudden dish Trump again, I'm not saying your bark has no bite, but at this point, you're just pulling one from Trump's playbook. But we'll follow that story as it comes along. The other story I did want to get into, guys, I did talk about this a few weeks ago about the officer who opened the door on a teen just eating McDonald's in the parking lot and shooting him as he sped off. Well, that individual has been indicted for attempted murder. The officer's name is James Bernan. After a grand jury handed down the indictment, he will be charged with 1 count of attempted murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault. Which again, it should have happened, because for all those that I showed the video on, the man just literally walked up to the door, opened it, and said, "Get out." Even though news reports said, even though they were trying to say that there was reports of robberies in the area and that no description was given of the car, no description was given of the alleged assailant, just the fact that he rolled up on him, guns ready, opened his car door and said, "Get out." Now, for anybody, I don't blame them. That would scare the crap out of me too. And yes, I drive off. You're not going to point a gun at me. You're not going to point a gun at me and then announce yourself as police. So yes, he is no longer a police officer. He is being brought up on charges, and that a court case is underway. Again, people are arguing that, well, he only has 7 months of experience and he was a probationary officer. Well, that just honestly goes back into what I actually said about police reform. That training needs to be longer. You train longer to be a plumber, electrician, a construction worker, a beautician. You train in those areas longer than you train law enforcement. And I've yet to have anybody tell me different, especially here in Tennessee, specifically Middle Tennessee, where you can train for 6 months in the police academy and then you're out in the field. You're out in the field 6 months to protect and serve. At the same time, the requirements are not as expensive, not as best you. Now I could argue the pay. The pay is terrible. Let's be honest. You're a public servant. The pay is terrible. But the fact that you don't have training, the fact you're not training, you're not giving additional training as far as awareness for special needs, mental issues, and the fact of the matter is that now Biden has already signed a bill to where they're encouraging more law enforcement and more police and more tactical units to be put out there. It's not going to get any better. I hate to say it, that there may be other situations like that one may happen, but until we actually have actual police reform, then unfortunately we're going to be stuck with that type of scenario. Especially the simple fact of the matter is, for a lot of people, it's scary. Now I get the fact that without police officers, crime rises, but there is a way to actually police correctly. But that's only part of the problem. The other part of the issue is what are these areas of high crime rates? What are they missing? But again, another conversation. But the last thing I got, guys, before we get to our feel good segment is that finally, I think that Trump's whole idea of diverting and delaying cases, especially with the multiple lawsuits that he's in, may show that he's actually finally running out of road.
Court of Appeals has removed a major obstacle to the ongoing investigation and shut down the special master review of documents seized from Mar-a-Lago. The unanimous ruling by a 3-member panel of the court made it clear that the judge stepped widely outside of her jurisdiction in appointing a special master in the first place and said, quote, "The law is clear." The move comes as former President Trump continues to face ongoing investigations on a variety of fronts. The chairman of the House committee, who now has possession of some of Trump's tax returns, says he has designated staffers to review them. All of this comes as the former president has announced his intentions to run for president again in 2024, sparking Attorney General Merrick Garland to appoint a special counsel to deal with the sprawling Justice Department investigation. Let's get straight to our Chief Justice correspondent, Mr. Pierre Thomas, who's in Washington tonight with more on this breaking news. So, Pierre, explain the significance of this ruling and what it means for the investigation of the former president.
Lindsay, it's another rebuke of the federal judge overseeing Justice Department's Mar-a-Lago document investigation. An appeals court tonight ruling that there's no need for a special master to oversee any of those documents Trump took from the White House and to resolve issues of privilege. The appeals court concluding that Judge Aileen Cannon cited no legitimate case law and questioned whether former President Trump should be treated any differently than any other criminal defendant. The appeals court had previously overturned a ruling by Judge Cannon blocking DOJ from using classified documents seized from Mar-a-Lago. The latest ruling means that DOJ could soon have unfettered access to all those documents taken in the search of Trump's property, Lindsay.
Moved a major...
So what does that basically mean? Basically that Trump's running out of road. He really is. He is running out of road. That just means that at this point that, eventually it is going to hit the fan, because that's what Trump does. All he does is delay, divert, appeal. Delay, divert, appeal. And in the court of federal law, you can only do it for so long, especially the fact of how in the world a Florida judge, which was appointed by Trump, by the way, was able to actually give him that special master that he was asking for, only to have it turn around and get shot down. So, do I think that Trump maybe finally hit the wall? Possibly. But again, the man wants to run in 2024. And the scary part is, if he is still not in jail by then, he actually may shake up the political landscape again. And that is a scary freaking thought. But moving right along, guys, we're going into our feel-good segment, because usually on the Frack we got here, we do cover a lot of things. Sometimes make you doom and gloom. Sometimes make you lose faith in humanity. But hey, it is the weekend. We want to leave you guys out with some good vibes. And before we get to the feel-good story, I do want to point this out by saying happy birthday to the man who, without him, we would not have video games. Yes, I am honestly talking about Gerald Jerry Lawson. This man, of course, that's his 2 daughters right there. That man was known as the father of video gaming. For all those kids who don't even learn about history, here you go. He was actually, back in the 1980s, developed one of the first video game companies, VideoSoft. He also developed the first video game console with interchangeable cartridges. Without this man, arguably, we would not have video games today. So I just wanted to go ahead and give a shout out. and say happy birthday to the man who pretty much, without him, I would not have the consoles, and a lot of us wouldn't have the consoles throughout today. So again, if you don't know who he is, Google Gerald Jerry Lawson and get educated, because without him, we would not have video games. And as always, definitely Black excellence. But then again, I just want to point that out because as video games are near and dear to my heart, without that man, we would not have them. So let's go into our feel good segment, because again, I thought this was pretty cool. Imagine you as a football fan finally getting the chance of a lifetime to actually have a game of catch with one of your favorite football players. This kid did.
Back now with our play of the day and Thanksgiving memories for one little boy thanks to an NFL star. So Bills wide receiver Stephon Diggs spots a young fan with the sign saying, "All I want for Christmas is to play catch with Stephon Diggs." You see him bringing the little boy down there. He decided to make that wish come true, inviting him onto the field before the Buffalo-Detroit game. And then, of course, playing catch with him right there on Ford Field.
How cool is that? Oh, and he caught it. He caught it.
Goodness.
That's amazing.
He's got some skills. Huge smile from the little boy. Of course, he will remember that for the rest of his life. Turns out Diggs was not only a hero before the game, but also during the game. That there's Bills quarterback Josh Allen throwing him a 5-yard touchdown pass, giving the Bills a fourth quarter lead. Buffalo ended up beating Detroit with the last gasp field goal, 28-25.
Love that moment with the
Did
kids.
I sound like a sports? I was looking at you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing: that kid is never going to forget that at all. Like I said, to be able to actually have a catch with one of your favorite football players, yeah. Again, kindness goes a long way. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people listen live. I certainly appreciate it. Some shameful promotions, as always, before we get out of here. Shout out to my buddy Vaughn at BigVZA on all socials. Definitely check him out on TikTok as well as his beats. Yes, he is back to making beats, so definitely give him a shout out. Also with me, guys, you can find me on all my socials at BlockBox447. Follow me everywhere. I usually post everything that I watch, review, and play, and do gym stuff because I do a couple push-ups. Also, the link at the bottom, guys, let me make that just a wee bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, it will take you to my link tree that has the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack got here, Get Bit, and of course, the Also It's podcast. Definitely like, share, subscribe, and also let me know what you think of the show. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you like the stories we covered? The stories that we missed that you want us to look into? We can definitely do that as well. And as always, guys, I am all about promoting kindness, promoting unity. Changing the narrative is what we really need to do, and that's my wish for the end of this year and going into 2023 and beyond. Also, guys, if you are traveling, especially in the holidays, you're going to be in high traffic areas, please wear a mask, because right now, Corona is still around. It's multiple variants still around. We are still in a pandemic area. Please protect yourself. If you're sick, please stay home. The only way we're going to get out of this pandemic is for everybody to do their part, which means that you have to protect yourself. By protecting yourself, you protect others. It's as simple as that. The last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind, but we provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black 4-star military general in the armed forces. All great things. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up by our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will all